O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You know what my favorite text is? A waypoint in the onX Hunt app to a goblin turkey. The list on the onX Hunt app features for chasing turkeys is long, but knowing exact public and private boundaries and land ownership details will help you find more places to hunt, whether that's on public or private. I'll be toting the Hunt app through the spring woods in a few states this year, and I recommend you do the same if you want more turkeys on your table. Also, onX has a special offer for you. Use code BEARGREASE to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt this spring.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and this is a production of the Bear Grease podcast called the Bear Grease Render, where we render down, dive deeper, and look behind the scenes of the actual Bear Grease podcast. Presented by FHF Gear, American-made, purpose-built hunting and fishing gear that's designed to be as rugged as the places we explore.
Did Isaac get new boots? And what's happening to Brent's feet?
Wow. Let's start with Isaac. Those,
Yeah,
are
like
those
I got
new
a
boots,
medical
Isaac?
condition.
Oh, I'm new boot goofing.
Those are different than the ones before?
Look at
that.
those.
Holy cow.
Wow. They've got some kind of metallic, kind of looks like mallard metallic
Well, I'll
green
tell you what
head.
happened. I was at the Delta Waterfowl Expo in Little Rock, and I straight surfed across the bathroom floor. There was a layer of moisture that I hope was from a recent mopping, but I doubt, and just stopped myself by banging my shins right into the urinal.
That you look like
Because
poor
I
animal.
had leather sole boots on.
Right.
So I went for the hybrid.
Oh, it's
I got
a little
some
rubber sole.
little
Now,
bit
see, those are what we'd call rough out boots.
rough out boots.
Would you
Yes,
have
sir.
known that, Miss Newcomb?
No, sir.
Okay, so there's two sides to leather. There's the smooth finish side, and there's the rough out. So those would be rough out. Nice, Isaac. Now let's talk about Brent's shoes.
I mean, what's happening?
What happened?
I don't
we
know
just-
where my
to you?
Crocs were.
You didn't know where your Crocs were?
Yeah, no, I
I'm
got
just trying
these.
to figure out why you own them.
These are, somebody gave them to me.
Those are very popular.
Are
in
they?
the-
Pretty
in
sure
the-
they say, hey, dude.
Hey dude,
Hey
they're Hey
Dude.
Dudes. I believe they are now owned by Crocs, so technically on brand for Brent Reeves.
Hey, there you
I
go.
don't know. They
I'm
they
loyal.
have a funny look with your overalls. They're not,
A funny look.
you
Wow.
know, just it's
You're wearing a pair of rubber
not
boots.
funny like funny
Let's
ha
try to
ha,
make
but
our
funny like
let's try to make
yeah, I am
our
wearing-
commentary about other people a little more diplomatic.
Okay, all right. I am
Yeah.
wearing muddy rubber boots.
I
You're
get
right,
my
Brent.
feelings hurt so easily.
Welcome to the Bear Grease Render. This is a fantastic day. I'm kind of just looking around at the footwear. Yeah, Brent definitely wins the kind of preppy guy in the overall award.
yeah.
with those.
No
and then
socks.
we got to skip over our guest, but he's got a nice,
Brogans.
solid pair of Brogan type brown boots. Misty's wearing her extra tough rubber boots, which is great. Isaac with his rough outs, and Gary Newcomb with his
Sportivas.
trail running shoes. Great to see everybody. We have a fantastic podcast aligned. I would like to introduce my father, Gary Newcomb, to my right. Dad, how you been?
Hey, great.
Great.
Maybe even better than great.
Wow,
Well, I hope you enjoyed this Holt Collier podcast and have some insight for us.
Well, I didn't, and I don't.
You're like, it was just
No, I'm kidding you. I liked it a lot.
To your right, Isaac Neal,
Yes, sir.
assistant to the regional producer
Yep.
of the Bear Grease podcast.
Glad you got to see me today.
Good to see you, man. Isaac tells me today that he's got an appointment for a new tattoo. You want to share with us what that tattoo is?
Oh, Misty's
And
gonna
maybe give me a little bit of credit for it.
Yeah, by all means. Misty's gonna love this too because I had this
I
idea.
like that there is some level of planning on this one.
I had the idea
Shade.
yesterday morning during church,
Oh,
and then I
jeez.
texted the tattoo artist. But I thought,
Wow.
I don't know what about church inspired it, but it popped into my head. I want to get a possum and a raccoon, so I think I'm going to get a big possum and a raccoon on the backs of my
Well,
legs.
that makes a lot of sense.
Why? But these
Where'd
are
you go
like
to
the
church at?
creatures that are the worst.
Well, see
Whoa.
that's what's great.
Possum
Hey,
and raccoon, they eat my chickens.
All
That-
about it. This is a great example of how perspective informs someone. Like now, a raccoon to me is one of the greatest beasts in North America. Yeah, they eat our
Interesting.
chickens, but that is why I like chickens, is because raccoons eat them.
That's very interesting.
Coons are here first.
I don't know if it's appropriate. Well, Clay's got a good possum story if he feels
Oh,
up to
wow.
sharing it.
I forgot about that.
Part 2, I just because Isaac said Misty's going to love this, I want to make it clear. I don't have a problem with Isaac getting tattoos. The thing that is really
Misty's a principal, so she
If-
feels
hey.
like she could.
well,
I'm gonna
I'm
say
just
this
saying-
one time. Let Misty talk.
Yeah, I know. Please stop saying that. But I think what makes me nervous is that Isaac gets tattoos sometimes without a lot of premeditation. And from my perspective, these are
You afraid he's going to run out of space?
no. I'm concerned about these are lifelong
gonna run out of
commitments
paper?
to your skin, and it's just like. How can you make a decision like that?
I think he's
that's so
pretty much
consequential. I think he is in. Yeah, I think he's.
And we can come back to my
yeah.
possum story, and I want to hear a little bit more about why the possum. But we're going to skip over our guest, as we do. Brent Reeves, great to see you.
Hello.
And then to your left is
Yes.
my friend Jonathan Wilkins. Jonathan, great to have you on the Bear Grease Render.
Oh, thank you much.
Nice shoes.
Now, talking
Also my
about
friend.
tattoos, I've always loved some of Jonathan's tattoos. You got a...
You like
Is
that
this
rooster
okay?
tail there?
Yeah, let me see. He's got a beautiful rooster tail,
the fish is pretty.
and then a picture of your mom.
Yep.
How cool is that?
This dog with the mustache is pretty sporty.
Got a dog with a big mustache.
Let me see the dog with the mustache.
Did you see the picture of his mom? It looks like
Yeah, I saw that was one that he had that. That was like one of the first ones I ever saw, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. Did
Jonathan, how much
did it
time?
capture your mom in like I assume she's aged in the last 20 years.
Yeah, she was not crazy about it at first, not because she was upset about the tattoo, but because she had glasses on
Oh,
and she had gotten LASIK.
Oh,
Oh.
But, now this is what she looked like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
so she's all about it.
just color it
Yeah.
in like
Do you-
their
That's
sunglasses.
great.
what do you think? I know that LASIK has developed a lot in the last few years. Do you think there's a
Shouldn't work.
potential for LASIK on tattoos? Do you think the tattoo can get LASIK surgery
Oh,
and correct the eyesight?
yeah, I think that's a ridiculous question.
Yeah.
Tattoo.
Well, I was just curious how much forethought Jonathan put into his tattoos as opposed to our friend Isaac, who sometimes just
Are you still in the tattoo market, Jonathan?
Yeah, I've got a few that I plan on getting once my buddy opens up his new shop. Yeah, I think I've thought about all of them for a long time, and then I went 7 years without getting one. Oh shoot, I haven't gotten a tattoo in probably 3 years.
okay.
Yeah, I'm cool with having weird tattoos.
You just want to think about it.
Yeah, and I had some bad ideas when I was younger that I'm glad I didn't
Okay.
go with. Yeah, I try and
It
take
feels
it
like
seriously.
a real win when like 10 years later you're like, I'm glad I didn't do that. I mean, it feels like you could look back on your past self and be kind of like proud of how wise you were, even in the midst of a bad decision.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
there's some conversation to be had about the tattoos you didn't get, and
Yeah.
now how that's like a credit to you.
You can make that any
That's
kind
pretty
of
much
story.
the story of my life.
It's just a constant
The
restraint from tattoos.
I didn't get. Brent, do you have any tattoos? Be honest.
I have one.
Do you really?
Sinking ship.
Yeah, I've seen
Oh,
Brent.
dang.
No
it's,
way.
It's sunk, I guess.
I thought
We just got
I thought you
punked.
did have one.
There's
Yeah.
one right there.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it was an undercover tattoo.
let me see.
It's Batman in the middle. Can you see
No
it?
way.
Did you really get that while you were undercover?
Yeah. And it's Batman, the bat symbol right there.
So, wow, Brent, what a
Undercover-
commitment.
Undercover tattoo.
For as good of friends as we are, Brent, I've never seen your arm up that high.
Well,
I don't like showing the white parts of me. Anyway, Anyway,
Moving right along.
tattoos. Gary, you
How
don't have
about
any tattoos. I know
No, no,
Gary, you want to go with me on Friday?
no.
The Newcombs
You
are
could
kind
get
of.
Matt. You could get a possum and a coon.
Yeah,
Hey,
well,
I'll get the
Matching
possum and you get the coon.
He's a Black Panther man. If there
you know,
ever
when I
one.
was
Oh.
when I was young, we used to joke around about getting one tattoo like in a place where no one else would ever see it, and a few of my buddies did. But back then, tattoos, people just didn't get them.
Like the real rebels got tattoos.
I didn't know anybody with tattoos, so I guess
you
I
not?
didn't know
What
any
about
rebels.
when you was in the service?
Yeah, that's what.
No, I mean, I didn't go around looking at people.
Did
but,
Houston Millsap have tattoos?
the World War II guys had anchors and
Yeah.
mom and stuff when
Yeah.
they came back, but Houston
Houston
if
Millsap
Houston had
is my grandfather. On
if he
my
had a
mom's
tattoo,
side.
I didn't know about it. Anybody was thinking tattoos, I wonder about their stability.
That makes
There's
two of us.
three prime examples.
Now that I've alienated 1, 2, 3 people in a row.
3-on-3 here.
It's really Newcombs versus.
tattoos.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me. Okay, Isaac, why the possum and coon?
I just like the idea of the meso predators getting some love.
Wow.
So you're okay with a tattoo that has that little meaning to it?
What do you mean? Why do they have to have meaning?
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. That's
Yeah.
great. It's okay.
I like a raccoon. I like a possum. I like a grinner.
Could
like a
we
bandito.
put some meaning on it?
Oh,
that
by all
this
means.
period in your life while you were,
Yeah. For me, the tattoo will always mean that at this point in my life, I was thinking about getting a possum and a raccoon tattooed on me. Is
you
that
just
enough
want
meaning?
to remember that?
Yeah. I don't know. I like.
Okay.
It feels very Ozarkian to me.
So
It's something.
here's the possum story.
It's a good one.
I've told this twice this week, and it wasn't told originally to be funny. It was literally told as a means to explain to the people in my house and the man that was staying in our barn why something happened that potentially they saw.
And just to be totally disclosing, it's not like we often have been just staying in our barn. Like that's not a.
Didn't find him out there.
Yeah, we didn't
No,
find
it was
him
a
out
friend.
there.
It was a friend of mine.
We have a
Sleeping
place for
in the
people to.
hayloft,
Yeah,
Who stayed
exactly.
with us. So
Exactly.
Migrant work.
the other night, I hear dogs barking, and I don't tolerate barking dogs, and so they wake me up, and I think they're going to stop shortly. They don't stop. They continue to bark, and it's Jed and Tim. Tim the squirrel dog, Jed the coon dog. They bark so much that finally I get up and I'm angry. And usually I just lift the window in the bedroom and, you ought to hear my dog scolding voice. It'd scare a child.
Often the dogs don't
Um,
wake me up, but always the dog scolding does.
Yeah, and so I was so fired up, I wasn't even going to just open the window. I was going to go downstairs and go on the front porch and scold the dogs, just like, hush. And, but about halfway down the stairs, I realized they're not just joy barking, they're treeing something. Like, I'm like, they're looking at something.
Wait, can we pause this real quick? I got a question.
Sure.
Can we do a how-to video on how to scold a dog in the middle of the
Yes.
night?
Yes.
Continue. Just log it. I'll
There's
make a note.
way
Yeah.
to do it that works.
Yep.
And a dog and an animal can read intent.
Yeah.
So I've got another story about that too. So I walk outside and I think those dogs are treed, and so I go from anger to a little bit of excitement. I wonder what's in the tree. So I walk out, and sure enough, I see Jed and Tim just treeing on one of our apple trees. And I know that they're looking at something. And I'm like, what's in the tree? And I happen to be in my underwear and barefoot. And
we happen to have a guest.
yeah, so my buddy is staying over in the barn. So the window of the barn looks right over the apple orchard. Well,
Yep.
I've got my Coon Light on.
Yep.
And I walk out in the grass barefoot in my underwear and go and start circling this apple tree looking for what's in the tree.
Just want to pause so that everyone's got this. Coon hat, Coon Light, drawers, no shoes.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I look up in the tree, and there's a possum about 12 foot up in the tree, and the dogs are just looking at it, just treeing this possum. Well, I decide that the only way I'm going to get rid of this possum, and possums are bad news on this farm. So I was going to shake this possum out. I'll just be honest with you. That's what I was going to do. I shook the apple tree, and nothing fell but apples. And so I think, man, if I can just crawl up this tree a little ways, I can grab that limb and
Absolutely.
I'll just shake that sucker down. And so there's a fork in the tree, and I reach up and grab the tree, and I go to climb in this apple tree. Now remember, I'm in my underwear and I have my Sunspot Coon Light, which are going to be for sale on themeateater.com soon. For real, you can get a Coon Light just like me and Brent have.
That's right.
Best light in the world. I've got it on. and I go to climbing this apple tree barefoot, and I get like way up in the top of this apple tree, and the possum just disappears into the stars. Like I don't know where he goes. This isn't a big apple tree.
Flew off.
He's
But
a
by the
flying
time
possum.
I get up there, I once heard someone tell a story about how that like a slick tree, like when a dog trees and there's nothing in the tree, that like the animal escaped into the stars and their dog was still there treeing. That's what happened. I get up to the top of the apple tree. I cannot find the possum. I don't know what happened to him. Well, so I decide that I've got to get down from the tree, and I don't have my
confused.
contacts in, and I'm barefoot. I don't know if you ever climbed an apple tree barefoot, but my foot is crammed down in the crotch of this tree so deep that I can't get it out. And so I'm like hanging, and I feel like I've got to like jump backwards just to land. And my foot is stuck in the crotch of this tree, and I think I'm going to come out of this tree backwards, and my foot is going to stay in this tree, and I'm going to break my ankle in this apple tree. And so I just have this big kerfuffle coming out of the tree.
Oh, what?
And I finally, I feel like I'm like 8 foot off the ground. And I finally just go, I'm just going to have to go up and then back and just like jump out. And when I go up and back and jump out, I was like 6 inches off the ground. And then I kind of shined up towards where the window was where my buddy was staying to see if he was watching me. And he wasn't. And then I just walked back in the house. And the dogs were happy with that. They never saw the possum didn't come down.
They
to
just
my
needed
knowledge.
to know.
But the dogs were just like, yeah, that's good enough. We're
After-
good now.
After they saw the show,
So you're telling me about this magic animal that can ride off into the stars, and you're like, why would you get a tattoo of that creature? And I'm like,
Yes.
Why wouldn't you get
Plus,
a tattoo of that creature?
it
I want one
smiles.
now.
Plus,
Hey,
it smiles.
yeah, possums. Brent, I got another story for you that I haven't told you.
Lay it
I
on
had to
me.
leave my dogs out overnight this week.
How come?
Well, I went on a coon hunt, wasn't planning to go, didn't have everything charged up really great because I hadn't been in a while, and I plugged it in for the last hour before dark, and I went out and I took Fern, Jed, and Hoot, the pup Hoot, and we went and treed, and they treed in a spot where I don't think they had the coon. I couldn't find the coon, but it was thick and
Yeah.
viney, and
Could have been there.
so we made a big loop and came around on another side of the property, and the dogs, Fern's collar went dead. Jed didn't have a collar because I only have 2 collars right now, and Hoot stayed with me. So Fern and Jed go off, and Fern's collar dies. And I'm up at the foot of this mountain, and I hear, like, I can't hear the dogs. And finally, I stay there for like 45 minutes or an hour, can't hear the dogs. And I walk back to the truck like half a mile, and I can hear Fern treed way back in there. But I don't have, the collar is dead.
Yeah.
And
He was old school in it, man.
and then when I walked towards her, when I got to the foot of the mountain, I couldn't hear her. And I can't course a dog because of a bad ear. So 3 different times I tried to walk to her and never could. Like I would just start walking to her and I would lose her, and then I'd come back. Like the way the truck set, I could hear her. And finally at 2 a.m. I just left. And I left her treed. I could hear her treeing. I mean, like a mile, 3/4 of a mile away. I could not find her. Came back at daylight, and she wasn't there. And long story short, about 10 o'clock, they showed up at the farmer's house I was hunting on. So that's my story.
I mean, if you were using the Leon Boyd technique, you would have never lost them.
Stayed with them.
Stayed with
Just
him.
take off sprinting.
Yep. Looked like a fallen star.
Man, you just got to make it a habit. As soon as you get home, really, I don't care if it's 9 o'clock at night or 9 in the morning. As soon as you hit the house, you got to put that stuff on the charge because I've been
know
right
it.
there with you.
I know it.
And the whole deal is you owe it to that dog to get out there because she went and did what you wanted her to do,
Yeah.
and you got to go to her.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about Holt Collier, but before we do, Brent pulled something out of his pocket today that shocked me. Brent, what do you have in your pocket? What do you carry in your pocket? And tell the story behind
My
it.
whole everything, or just this
Well,
one item?
Maybe 2.
Well, I took 2 pocket knives and chapstick and a buckeye. And this buckeye I've had since the first meeting you and I had. We went on top of a mountain on a bear hunt. We were sightseeing at that time, and there was a bunch of buckeyes up there. And I asked you if you knew about Buckeyes being good luck for hunters, and you said no, you hadn't heard that story.
Oh,
Gary,
now that's not true.
Gary, I blame you for that.
No, that is an outright lie that I reject.
'Cause-
We carried Buckeyes our whole. You're the one that taught me that was a kid. That part of the story's not true.
That
But
part may
carry
have,
on.
That part may not have been true. Anyway, I said the only way these can be good luck is if one hunter gives them to another.
Now that I wouldn't have known.
And you said, well, here. So I handed you one, and you handed me one, and this is the one that you gave me, and I've carried it in my pocket every day, everywhere.
Whoa.
If I leave the house with my britches on, unlike the Possum did, I've got this Buckeye in my pocket. Uniform, back when I wore a uniform, if I'm going to church, whatever, I've always got that.
That's
Buckeye
impressive.
That
you
is
kept it
impressive.
that long.
Yeah.
in my front
Undercover?
left hand.
No, that undercover was before that, wasn't it?
Correct, but I had one then because my dad had given it to me, and we exchanged them my whole life back and forth, and they were just absolutely turned to dust.
Impressive. And then you have a quarter that your wife gave you.
It's $1.
Okay.
It's one of those. Was it Sacagawea $1?
Okay.
And she said, it would help me find my way back home. I'll always be able. If I'm in the woods, it would help me get home. So I carry that in my pocket too.
Jonathan, would you have the wherewithal to keep up with something for like 10 years, a Buckeye? I wouldn't.
I'd probably not. No.
So if I had given you a Buckeye 10 years ago, you'd have probably lost it.
Or threw it
Yeah,
away.
I'm not as romantic as.
You threw it away.
Yeah.
Nuke, I've got a pretty good Buckeye story.
Okay.
So Clay wanted to plant all native plants out here when we first moved out here. So we planted some Buckeyes, and the girls were really fascinated. If you've ever seen how a Buckeye grows, it's pretty interesting. Right now, they're all spiky, and then they fall down. And our girls, even River came home last fall, and she just instinctively just started collecting them all and put them in a vase in our living room. They just always would carry them around. River was a real funny girl. We would go places, and Willow would always be focused on getting the job done, getting from point A to point B. River, you would turn around, and she would be about a mile behind us, just picking things up, seeing all sorts of things that we missed along the way, and putting them in her pocket. So every time I did her laundry, I had to empty out, 2 pounds worth of interesting things.
River.
That don't surprise me.
She was real fascinated with those Buckeyes, and she would keep them in her pockets. And I don't know why people do this, but I get real testy around people who narrate the potential doom that could come. That's really unlikely, but could happen. And someone said as we were putting River in the car, "Hey, don't let her swallow that. It's poisonous." and I remember
This is a Buckeye the size of half the size of a golf ball.
The poison
Like,
may
it's
not be
not-
what kills her.
It's not really a swallow hazard.
It's not. Yeah, but I was a young mom, and I was like, why would you even put that thought in my head? And
Yeah.
River was real little, and we put her in the car, and we drove off, and we were going to meet. Clay was actually behind me. We had 2 cars, and we were meeting somewhere. And I had River in the car. I had my mom in the car. I had Willow in the car. We're driving, and River's just playing. Every time I look back there, she's just playing with this Buckeye. And once I look back there, and she doesn't have the Buckeye. And I said, "Hey, Riv, where's your Buckeye?" And she looked, and she got this real.
She's like 3 or 4.
And River talked real funny. She had some things going on with her adenoids, so she had a real deep voice, and she just got really scared looking. And she looked at me and she said, "I swallowed it." And I was like, "No, you didn't swallow it." And she said, "I swallowed it, Mom. I did." And all of a sudden, she started panicking in the car. Yeah. And of course, my mom and I are looking at each other, and I called Clay. He was behind us.
River swallowed a Buckeye the size of a golf ball.
River may have just swallowed a Buckeye. Are they really poisonous? I mean, should I go straight to the ER, or do we have some time here? I didn't know all that. So we pull over, and Clay walks over there, and we sit River up, and everybody's looking in her mouth and looking, and we set her up, and boom, in her car seat is a big old Buckeye. And she had just lost track of it and remembered that we had been warned.
Yeah, so she wasn't lying. She just thought, she was like,
I've mapped it out.
Where is the Buckeye?
It's missing
I
now.
must have swallowed it.
That's
The
same
danger
thing.
was.
And she looked up, oh, there it is.
The same thing will happen to you with boiled okra if you swallow it too fast.
You forget it?
No, it'll be in your chair when you stand up.
Hey, we have just a few more housekeeping things to do here. On the last Bear Grease render, I put my mule up for sale, and when I did this, I thought this was a great idea to sell stuff on the Bear Grease Render podcast. And so we're actually starting an official Bear Grease Bargain Barn section of the Bear Grease Render. And this is for real, if you have something for sale, now we're not guaranteeing that everybody that writes in is gonna get their item put up for sale.
We need premium items.
I have a bow for sale.
Okay, well that'll be the first one. But so basically, every week we're gonna have the Bear Grease Bargain Barn, where we're gonna sell about 3 items, and you can email your item to beargrease@themeateater.com. And I will not be monitoring this email address, but someone will, and it's got to be for real because we're gonna put you have to have a social media handle because we don't want to put a phone number or an email.
We're not going to be playing matchmaker.
That's right.
We're putting it out there. This is what's for sale.
Yeah,
Read
so
a little bit of the email.
We're not involved in the sale. We're not involved with money. We take zero liability for for anything that could possibly go wrong with this.
Yeah.
But we're looking for real stuff that needs to be sold that you think would be a benefit
Mules.
to our listeners. What do you think,
Bows.
Jonathan? You think this is going to work?
I mean, I guess it could
logistics.
work.
Like, what if you had a duck boat that you needed sold, and you could get it in front of a bunch of Bear Grease podcast listeners?
Or some eagle feet.
Potbelly stove.
Well, I mean, one of those would be illegal. Right? Yeah, I mean, you've got a great listenership, so I'm sure that you could make a few shekels.
Well, I mean, we're not making money. It's not about us.
We're doing a public service.
That's what you're saying.
We're
right
facilitating.
now.
Okay.
I mean, no, we're not
Okay.
like taking a. Oh, you think we're going to move into like taking a cut?
Well, I mean, how hard is it to start an Instagram account? Someone named Blay Bookham
Yeah.
That's right.
that was selling raccoon baculums.
There you go. Okay.
This is you're saying this is a way of fencing his ill-gotten gain.
Well, maybe not ill-gotten. I don't think he's poaching coons, but
Okay.
I think there could be an illicit trade in
Okay.
baculi.
We finally get rid of all
Okay.
those bear
But-
gallbladders we got stacked up.
Uh-oh. FBI.
Have you told Bear about this?
No, I haven't. So this is for real. It's going to be called the Bear Grease Bargain Barn, and there will be a short segment on the Bear Grease Render. And so you can email what you have for sale to beargrease@themeateater.com.
Yeah.
And we can't read everybody's stuff, but stuff that we feel is appropriate. And tell us what it is. Give us the whole sales pitch, and be ready for some people to come knocking on your door.
One of the things we'd like to see is in the subject line of the email, Bear Grease Bargain Barn, BGBB, something like that.
Yeah.
And then really sell us on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be a good ad. We need some effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to facilitate a sale, make it entertaining.
Yeah. Like, let me just put it out here. Broken clothes dryer. We putting that up?
Probably not.
No. Pontoon boat turned into a tiki bar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's a good example.
Wood-fired cook stove.
Mm-hmm.
Old gas tiller for the garden.
Yeah.
How much are we selling that for?
I don't know. See, we're getting it going now.
So, we just kind of want to facilitate some stuff because I put my mule up for sale the other day, and I had a few bites, few nibbles. But I'm actually
You kind of slandered the mule a lot.
I didn't slander the mule. That's why I can never be a mule trader because I'm too honest, Miss Newcomb.
Okay.
It's hard to sell a mule if you tell the truth every time. It's real hard. And so that's the reason I've decided to keep Banjo. And I've got a guy, my friend Michael Lanier, my squirrel hunting mentor, and he was on Meat Eater season 10, I think, with Steve Ranella and me, and we squirrel hunted. And Michael has found me a guy here in Arkansas that will keep him for 30 days and basically ride him. So that's a thing you do. If you have a mule Jonathan, you could pay someone. He's not training the mule. I mean, because the mule has been trained to some degree.
It's kind of like sending your kid to boarding school.
Yeah, it's just keeping them worked out.
Right. And so, but what,
like a mule
what
stepdad?
most guys that ride
Obedience
mules
training.
for a living, listen, it's actually a pretty good business model. And if things don't work out for me in outdoor media, I would consider doing this. You charge, like, I'll just tell you, this guy is going to charge $650 to ride that mule for 30 days. And do the math. If you had even, let's say, 7 or 8 mules for a month, and you're getting paid $650, that's several $1,000s of income per month. And all you would have to do, and you don't ride it every day, you ride it like 5 days a week. So they'll guarantee you, they're going to ride the mule like 24 times or something.
Sure.
For like 30-minute segments. Not like they're going to ride it all day. They're just going to saddle the animal, work the animal, ride it, unsaddle it. So if you woke up every day and you had to ride 8 mules, I mean, an hour a mule would be 8 hours. It's a good, honest mule man's day of work, So I have backup plans for my career.
I think that you could really kickstart your backup career by just going and riding people's mules and then invoicing them on the back end.
That's a good idea.
Don't wait for them to send you a mule. Just find a pasture with a mule in
Jump
it,
the fence.
hop on it, send them a bill at the end of the month.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's the mule story. That's the Bear Grease Bargain Barn story. We've covered a lot. Whitetail Institute launched the food plot revolution in 1988 with a concentration on research and real-world testing of forage products specifically for whitetail deer. Whitetail Institute's research and development team of agronomy experts provide effective, personalized service. I've been using Imperial whitetail clover for a long time in a food plot back behind my house. In 2007, I killed the biggest buck of my life over an Imperial whitetail clover small quarter-acre food plot. Imperial whitetail clover is the only clover scientifically developed through years of selective breeding. Clover Extreme genetic stability provides extreme cold tolerance, disease, and drought tolerance. It really does. Clover is coated with Whitetail Institute's Rain Bond, a polymer coating added for enhanced seedling survivability. They have an exclusive offer for Bear Grease listeners, 15% off Imperial Clover when you use the code BEAR at whitetailinstitute.com. That's whitetailinstitute.com and use code BEAR for 15% off. Ready to win Mother's Day and cement your reputation as the best gift giver in the family? Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos. She'll love looking back on these memories and seeing what you're up to today. Even better, with unlimited storage and an easy-to-use app, you can keep updating mom's frame with new photos, so it's the gift that keeps on giving. And this is not a joke. Juju Newcomb has an Aura frame, and we share photos, and they're incredible. Also, my mother-in-law has one. We have them. They truly are really good, really high quality. The Aura frame is easy to set up. It takes just 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. It also adjusts the display depending on light levels in the room to maintain the true color of your photos. For real, the digital screen is amazing. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame when you use code BEAR, B-E-A-R, BEAR. That's auraframes.com. Use code BEAR at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. Sport Dog is the most recognized brand in the hunting dog training industry. Born in 2003 in Knoxville, Tennessee, Sport Dog was forged by a passionate group of hunters and dog trainers who intimately understood the challenges of the field and the special connection between hunters and their dogs. The people at Sport Dog know that having a well-trained hunting dog is more than just having a reliable partner. It's a commitment to their safety and unlocking their full potential. The Sport Dog promise to customers is simple: gear the way you design it. Every product Sport Dog builds is meticulously designed and rigorously tested in the field, ensuring it withstands the toughest conditions you and your dog may encounter. Trust Sport Dog, where innovation meets passion, to elevate your hunting experience and strengthen the bond with your local companion. Using tracking equipment on my squirrel and coon dogs is extremely important to me to track my squirrel dogs and my one old coon dog that's not very good. Get 20% off your first purchase using the code BEARGREASE. Go to www.sportdog.com/beargrease to learn more. Jonathan, Black Duck Revival. Jonathan is Black Duck Revival on Instagram and your business. Tell me about your
Jonathan is. Yeah.
Jonathan is Black Duck Revival. Is that not a good way to say that?
It kind of sounded like you said Jonathan is Black Duck Revival, but that's funny.
I don't know if I stuttered.
I think you just you were slow in getting it out, and so it was like, what's Clay saying
it's
right now?
It's not untrue.
It is true.
You're remaining honest.
Well, tell me about your waterfowl outfit.
Oh, it's
and the classes and what you do.
Yeah. I've told this story, it feels so many times lately. So some years ago, I bought an old church in a town called Brinkley, Arkansas, over in the opposite side of the state in the Delta, and refurbed it, turned it into a lodge, and then I started doing these kind of curated hunt experiences where folks come out, we go hunting for a couple of days, do small groups. I cap the hunts at 5 people, and then we spend a couple days hunting and just going into depth about like whole bird processing. We look at like wax plucking, dry plucking, mechanically plucking birds. We do cooking classes and demos. I'm real big on like whole bird usage. So that's, cooking the innards and using the feet and all that kind of stuff. And it's got a bunch of like Southern heritage stuff wrapped into it. So yeah, I've got a handful of spots left for this season on that.
So it's during duck season and goose season, and you have people come in and you host them at your lodge, you feed them, and you take them duck hunting and goose hunting.
Yeah,
and then you teach them how to handle the ducks, handle the geese, cook them, and I mean it's like a class,
an immersive experience.
Yeah,
we call it. Yeah. And so
would you be upset with me if I basically copied your model for coon and squirrel hunting?
Go for it, man.
Squirrel, what would we call it? Gray squirrel revival? I don't know.
You'd have to, secure large blocks of private land because you can't guide for that stuff on public land in Arkansas.
What about you could shift?
You can't guide for squirrel hunting in Arkansas on public land.
It's fish only on public land.
Really? So there's no public land guiding in Arkansas,
as far as I understand it.
Yeah, I've just never thought about it because no one guides for squirrel.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time you could do it. You do it for ducks, but they shut that.
I thought they shut it down just for ducks because of the pressure that waterfowl areas have from outfitters and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying I know that. I'm just saying I did not know because I actually had if the outdoor media thing didn't work and then the mule training thing didn't work, that was option 3.
What about
squirrel guide?
What about flashy mule revival and then you train mule skinners?
Man, I'm probably not that good.
You don't have to be that good. You just have to get good.
If he was real good at it, he wouldn't have that
be
mule for
good
sale.
once.
Yeah.
Get them in, get them out. So
I think part of Jonathan's, I think part of the draw that's missing with the gray squirrel is just how beautiful it is. When the videos you've gone, was it you and Bear or you and Shep?
I took the boys to your lodge.
Shep and Bear,
it's really a beautiful, neat place.
Oh, thanks, man.
And when you see the birds flying above you, I mean, that was kind of amazing. Just a really amazing experience to.
It was.
I have 2 comments.
Okay.
One is
Gary just raised his hand.
Give me the $650 and just keep your mule out here because it ain't gonna work. Okay. Ooh. Number 2.
Oh, you don't think it's worth me sending it to the guy?
That's a con job. Yeah. Your buddies turned on you.
Okay.
All right. Now, and on Jonathan, didn't you do a podcast on him under Bear Hunting Magazine?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, Jonathan, you're my hero.
Oh, well, that's
I
nice.
was so impressed. If you have not heard that podcast, go back and find it. That was my favorite podcast ever. And I told Clay, I said, that guy right there is the stinking real deal, and I love him. And I'm telling you, I was so impressed. We were at a family reunion. You remember that?
I remember. I do.
And I go, man, you guys got to find this podcast. And you know, you explained some stuff that I'd never heard before that made the world so much clearer for me. And I just want to say that you got it going on, brother.
Oh, thanks.
Big endorsement.
That's big
I'm
endorsement, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Welcome to the Bear Grease Friend.
I'm sorry to disappoint you if you find out I'm a tattooed carny.
No.
That's
Well,
very
you know,
kind.
you look around at the world today, and if what I said is true, we're in big trouble because everybody's got tattoos.
Yeah. No, yeah. Jonathan and I did a podcast a couple of years ago.
Yeah, on the front porch, that
Yeah.
long house I used to live in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we basically just talked about race issues. I don't know how we describe it. I don't remember what
It was,
we talked about the book,
yeah,
Scott
yeah.
Geltner's book, Hunting and Fishing in the New South. That was what it was, but it kind of we talked about how the book, you turned me on to it and I read it, and it was a great book. And we actually interviewed Scott Geltner, who is most likely going to be on some of the later episodes. Isaac interviewed him. But yeah, that was a great podcast. We got a lot of good feedback from it.
Isn't that where you found out about Holt Collier?
Well, in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Scott's book. Yeah.
That's right. In Scott's book, he had just like a little small section about Holt Collier was in Scott's book. Yeah, for sure.
I also listened to that episode driving to interview Scott, and I was like, I should do a little bit of research, right? Because it was kind of a last minute thing. You're like, hey, can you drive up and interview him tomorrow? Like, yeah. So I'm on the way there, 4.5 hours. So I was like, Google whatever, Scott Geltner interview, whatever. And then it just comes up with you two. And I was like,
Oh, for
perfect.
real?
Serendipity. #1 hit.
Mm.
So I listened to that. It was awesome.
Cool. Well, so have we thoroughly introduced Jonathan enough? Talked about what he does. You're also a writer and an ambassador for some brands in the hunting space. Yeah.
You possess
He that shall not be named.
You possess a van that I'm envious of.
Yeah, I got the van. I'm trying to spend as much time as possible in that thing.
Nice.
Got to stop making babies if I'm going to do that, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Married family man.
You got two.
I got 2 little girls, and I got a boy coming in the middle of duck season.
Oh,
right on.
Timing. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
The circle of life.
Circle of life. Well, great.
That's awesome.
Well, okay, let's talk about Holt Collier. This podcast has been in the works for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I talked to you about this 1.5 years ago, didn't I? We
Yeah,
talked about it
some time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's been in the docket, and kind of how this stuff rolls out is sometimes opportunistic, sometimes strategic, and it just like came up in the Rolodex, the Bear Grease Rolodex, like Holt Collier, it's time. And so I contacted Jonathan, I contacted Miner Ferris Buchanan. I love his name. Like I want to just say it over and over.
How do you spell the minor?
Like
MINOR.
like music.
Okay.
MINOR.
I've got questions about his name, but
Miner Ferris Buchanan.
yeah.
I
I'd
really
like to know
the guy.
why.
I like him a lot. And then Hank Burdine. So Jonathan, Hank, and Miner were the guests. And so like what was your thoughts? Misty, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it was such a good podcast. I was actually driving with our oldest daughter across the U.S., across the East Coast, trying to get her moved, and we were listening to it, and I mean, it was just like every break, I was sad that there was a break. We kept
Really?
Yeah, it was so intriguing, and I've heard a lot about it, just as but I think what I've heard mostly has been about what the next podcast will be. The next two, because you never talked about the things that we've.
Oh yeah. This was just the first 20 years of his life.
Yeah.
Man. This is the boring stuff.
Yeah. So I thought it was so interesting. Just his whole life was just fascinating.
What was most interesting?
Well, I mean, I just think it was fascinating just thinking about the time that he lived, like the era that he existed on this earth,
Yes.
and how who he became inside of that, and I thought it was super interesting. Oddly, I thought it was also super interesting how Minor Ferris Buchanan, the pathway to writing this book.
Yeah.
That was super random in my opinion. But it was just really fascinating. Just his whole life story was just so not what you'd expect.
Yeah. Yeah. Dad, what do you think?
I thought it was very good. Just a lot of thoughts. Let me ask this question: if he was white, with basically the same story, tied in with the Hines, 14 years old, went in the Civil War. I mean, would the story be any different? I mean, it would be. I don't know that you would have paid attention to it
Right.
had he been a white boy.
Sure.
So what's made this interesting to most people is that he was a black guy.
Yeah.
So why was he so special? And I think he revealed a lot of it. The depth of it was just amazing.
Yeah.
It was almost as good as Jonathan's podcast.
Yeah.
It just revealed things where, I don't know, it's just a subject that I think educated a lot of people, that
On this one?
that this podcast just tells you that there's just great people everywhere, and this guy was one of them. And he was exceptional, I think, because of his DNA and the environment he was in, just pulled everything together where he was a powerful person. And he couldn't help it. I mean, he was a magnet wherever he was.
Mm-hmm.
When he walked in the room, I mean, you go like, here's this little shrimpy guy, but I mean, he just captivated everybody. And so racism almost was not even in the subject. I mean, in a way, it was big racism, but it was like, hey, we like this guy because who he is. We don't care what color he is. We want him to ride in the cavalry. We want him to guide and bear hunt. We want all this stuff because he's a stinking winner, and I want to be a little bit of it.
I mean, that's what you feel like you see, because everywhere he goes, people are singling him out, and just he was, and that's what I said inside of this is that, I didn't, and I said this to Jonathan, I said it to everybody, I didn't want to turn this into a podcast just about race. I wanted to celebrate this guy's life, but I think we owe it to Holt to look at it, because that was the hegemon, that was the dominating thing of his life, was that he was a black guy in the South doing stuff that at the time, just wasn't normal at all. But he made it. It's like almost like from the version of the stories we have, like he made it kind of look easy. And that's what Jonathan did so well, was to say, yeah, this story's, pretty easy to tell, but Holt lived a very complicated life, and it was a wild time. And, I thought Jonathan did a good job of bringing in just like, hey, this story's not probably as simple as it sounds, Let
me ask you this. I feel like you said in this podcast that he had killed 3,000 bears by what age?
Well, just in his life.
That is wild, right? I mean, that's exceptional.
Yeah.
I know
That's
it's like a whole different time period, but
us.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody in this room combined.
Yeah. So that's exceptional. And that's because I think you might have actually heard the Holt Collier story even if he wouldn't have been in the context that he was in. But especially thinking about what is about to happen in the next. I'm like foreshadowing your
You
next
can
podcast.
tell. We've already told everything that's going to happen. What are you talking
Well,
about?
the
Like
Teddy
him,
Roosevelt.
Yeah.
I mean,
him
I
hunting
think
with Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, him hunting with Teddy Roosevelt, and then like a global icon, and just having killed 3,000 bears. I mean, that's when you said that, I thought that cannot be true,
Yeah.
but it is true.
Yeah. I mean, so what you'll learn. Well, maybe we've already talked a lot about that, but he basically had a log where he had logged 2,100 bears, and these market hunters kept records, not like we keep records today, kind of as we hunt. They kept records like financial records, it's like taxes, you know.
Okay.
And so he had a log. I think when he was at some latter part of his life, but not finished bear hunting, where he'd killed 2,100 bears, and a house burned down and destroyed that log. But basically, they really believe that he killed 3,000 bears in his lifetime. And I mean, that wouldn't be. It's not unheard of for the market hunting, the peak of the market hunting era.
Name 5.
But at the peak, no, I can't. I mean, I'm just saying it's not.
Yeah.
There's people that have done that, but very few. And I mean, Boone, the thing, and I think Jonathan was the one who said it to me, maybe not on the air, but like Boone did some market bear hunting, but Boone didn't bear hunt for 30 years.
Okay.
He market hunted for periods of his life, and there was a year when he killed 155 bears on the Little Sandy River in Kentucky, and that was, you know, if he'd done that for 30 years, he would have had his, you know, more than that. But like, you know,
Okay.
he had a long, Holt had a long and illustrious career as a market bear hunter in a good part of the world to be market bear hunting. Jonathan, what did you think overall podcast? How'd it come off?
Yeah, man, I thought I told you on the phone, man. I thought it was well done. I was happy to be a part of it. Yeah, I mean, I do think that, you know, part of what's so compelling about the guy is that I feel like his story is so extraordinarily multifaceted that putting any sort of kind of parameters on him or trying to quantify our understanding of his motivations or everything he was doing we're never going to get the full picture of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we talked about on the phone, because we've talked about this a couple times on the phone the last few weeks. I think that I think that his story would be worth telling if he wasn't black, because I think that he did so many extraordinary things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like we talked about before, like every 10 years of this guy's life, there's some fantastic story, right? And I do think that the relationships he had with the people around him are part of what's extraordinary about him. But I'm gonna actually disagree a little bit with you here, Gary, and say that I don't think that it was. I don't think it could fully that because of the time. I don't think that, you know, him being black could ever be inconsequential to the way he interacted with people. Something I really thought about when I was listening back to that podcast was, if you think about the two guys, or possibly three, but like the two guys that we know he killed,
Right.
I think that if he had killed Southern men of standing, I don't think he would have been acquitted.
Made it through.
I think it's the people that he took out, right? I mean, like, especially if you think about the Freedmen's Bureau guy, right? Like, I mean, that was a
union guy.
He was detested.
Nobody in the community would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely detested. I mean, even to the point that if you listen to that podcast, Hank Burdine used the word carpetbagger, right? Which is a pejorative, right? It's a pejorative we hear here in the South still sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's a holdover from 160 years ago, right? So I think that undoubtedly he was an extraordinary and exceptional outline human being. And we talked about it too. I think that it'd be hard for me to think that he didn't have close relationships with some of these people. Some of these kind of wartime relationships, like people in a foxhole type thing. But I also think that he was really adept, and I know you got schooled a little bit on mezzanine. I'll make the admission that I said adapt in that podcast when I should have said adept. But I think he was
If you talk a lot, you're gonna mess something up.
Absolutely. But I think he was really adept at negotiating his life.
Yeah.
And finding ways to be useful to the people around him that endeared himself to them. But yeah, I think that if he had gotten in a fight with Hines, like old Hines, and shot him, I think his story would have ended very soon after that.
Yeah.
But so I think that it's like I said, man, it's so many different layers to it that it's such a rich story. And that's the thing too that makes a story worth telling, right? Is it's not just an adventure tale. I mean, this is a story that's like full of adventure, full of heroism, incredibly long.
Yeah.
Like these interactions, almost like Forrest Gump, like running into all these different historical figures and stuff, right? Yeah. But then when we start to really try and investigate the nuance of it and put the real human perspective into it, it almost reaches like a point of being hard to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, man. Yeah, it's Hank Burdine said it in the beginning. He said it's a story that you almost think couldn't have happened, but it did. And that's why it's such a great story. Is he had so many things that happened, but where he was and who he was and this underlying thing was just so intriguing. Whitetail Institute launched the food plot revolution in 1988 with a concentration on research and real-world testing of forage products specifically for whitetail deer. Whitetail Institute's research and development team of agronomy experts provide effective, personalized service. I've been using Imperial whitetail clover for a long time in a food plot back behind my house. In 2007, I killed the biggest buck of my life over an Imperial whitetail clover small quarter-acre food plot. Imperial whitetail clover is the only clover scientifically developed through years of selective breeding. Clover Extreme genetic stability provides extreme cold tolerance, disease, and drought tolerance. It really does. Clover is coated with Whitetail Institute's Rain Bond, a polymer coating added for enhanced seedling survivability. They have an exclusive offer for Bear Grease listeners, 15% off Imperial Clover when you use the code BEAR at whitetailinstitute.com. That's whitetailinstitute.com and use code BEAR for 15% off. Ready to win Mother's Day and cement your reputation as the best gift giver in the family? Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos. She'll love looking back on these memories and seeing what you're up to today. Even better, with unlimited storage and an easy-to-use app, you can keep updating mom's frame with new photos, so it's the gift that keeps on giving. And this is not a joke. Juju Newcomb has an Aura frame, and we share photos, and they're incredible. Also, my mother-in-law has one. We have them. They truly are really good, really high quality. The Aura frame is easy to set up. It takes just 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. It also adjusts the display depending on light levels in the room to maintain the true color of your photos. For real, the digital screen is amazing. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame when you use code BEAR, B-E-A-R, BEAR. That's auraframes.com. Use code BEAR at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. Sport Dog is the most recognized brand in the hunting dog training industry. Born in 2003 in Knoxville, Tennessee, Sport Dog was forged by a passionate group of hunters and dog trainers who intimately understood the challenges of the field and the special connection between hunters and their dogs. people at Sport Dog know that having a well-trained hunting dog is more than just having a reliable partner. It's a commitment to their safety and unlocking their full potential. The Sport Dog promise to customers is simple. Gear the way you design it. Every product Sport Dog builds is meticulously designed and rigorously tested in the field, ensuring it withstands the toughest conditions you and your dog may encounter. Trust Sport Dog, where innovation meets passion, to elevate your hunting experience and strengthen the bond with your local companion. Using tracking equipment on my squirrel and coon dogs is extremely important to me. To track my squirrel dogs and my one old coon dog that's not very good. Get 20% off your first purchase using the code BEARGREASE. Go to www.sportdog.com/beargrease to learn more.
It's kind of wild that we all don't know Holt's name. Now, they know his name down there in Jefferson County, Mississippi. And we're going to unveil, and not that it's a secret, it's not a secret at all, but there's a federal wildlife refuge named after Holt Collier.
Yeah, the only one in the country that's named after an African American.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk about that.
They have a big
stuff.
festival. There's a festival in October. I think that towards the end of October that they have every year down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably something that happens with lots of people, right? Like the cloistered community around where some activity or some person was, they know about it, but the broader country or world doesn't find out about it.
Yeah.
But now we've got the internets. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was head and shoulders above everybody almost. I mean, his DNA, his makeup, his little 10-year-old guy gets the attention of the owner, Hines, and he goes, wait a minute, this little kid's something special. I mean, he can't help it, man. This guy's a stinking genius. I mean, he might not have the IQ of a genius, but he attracts people. He can do stuff. He makes things happen. Even as a little kid, they're going, what? Look at this little guy.
Yeah.
So he is one in a big number of people that can do what he did. And because he was black, it makes the story really interesting to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been around people like that. You walk in a room with a professional athlete and you just wonder, I mean, he must come from a different planet. I mean, he's a different species. They're big, strong, powerful, most of them smart. And you're like, just cow down. I can't wait for him to leave the room, man. And that's kind of the way this guy was. I mean, he might have been a little guy, might have had a quiet voice, but he was a powerful man, very powerful. And anyway, I love this guy.
Holt
there
Collier.
was definitely something throughout his entire life that was evocative for other people, right? I would say, though, too, that what I've been struck by is that if you really look at it, you go back to like when he was a little kid and he's kind of starting his market hunting, right? Because that's really kind of like a form of market hunting, right? He was hunting for the plantation.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that allowed him to really explore the extraordinary DNA, as you're referring to it, was that I think he was really nuanced and really kind of hip to the fact that he made himself useful to the people around him, right?
Yeah.
And that allowed him to avail himself to opportunities that other people of his station would not have. So, kind of, to me, I guess if there's a sad part about his life is that I don't know that he ever fully got to realize his potential for just himself, right? Like he had to be dexterous enough to always make the society around him like need him or want him. But I mean, that's, it's like if you ever seen Game of Thrones or something. I mean, that's like, that's like a political game. Like, this guy, I think, had the dexterity of a politician, coupled with the fact that he was just consummate outdoorsman, right? He had to be incredibly tough. He had to be incredibly nuanced in all these things he did, and then still be able to circumvent the norms of the time, to where I think kind of undoubtedly he had close relationships with people that you might not expect him to, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was natural, though. He didn't have to go in and go, look, I can see this game we're playing, and if I get to be valuable, then I'm going to win this game. I think it was he was just like, that was part of this thing that made him great, is that, you know, he just, that was natural. And it just, you can portray it as having the political savvy to do all this stuff. But I think the guy was born with this stuff, and that environment he was in accelerated it and magnified it, where he was just a powerful person by natural gift, is the way I see it, more than a calculated thing. Now, he was smart enough to have calculated it and done a lot of great stuff, but I'm not sure a 10-year-old can be smart enough to go, man, if I can kill them a bunch of bear, you know. I mean, he wanted to be helpful. He wanted, and it just ended up being a great asset.
And that's probably the way, I mean, a lot of us are in a lot of different scenarios too, you know, just like find how to, in the context you're in, be useful, be valuable.
I think part of the endearing nature of the story is the loyalty aspect of it, that his loyalty to the different people inside of his life, even like going, he heard that, what, does anyone remember the guy's name? The
Which
Union
one?
officer. What was his name?
Well, the guy
he killed.
Allegedly killed. Captain King.
He went after allegedly went after Captain King. I don't know, Clay. I think he did it. It's that sugar cane for me.
Oh, the sugar cane.
Yeah,
the way they stack the cane.
Just like that. Anyway, so I think like you've got these stories, but then you also have a lot of different people being loyal back to him. The Texas Knights sitting out there waiting on him during the court trial, and you see those stories. And so I think that when I was listening to it, the thing that struck me was just this theme of loyalty, irrational, not common for that time type of loyalty, coming in all different directions.
That's what everybody gave back to him. Like every relationship, you see that loyalty coming back to him, which is unusual, undoubtedly. Yeah,
I think there's an element of what you guys were talking about. I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. This idea that like he was born with an uncanny gift. But also, like, when I think of a young kid, like an abuse survivor or whatever, do you see how that molds their behavior as soon as, like, oh, I've connected that X and Y equals Z, so if I do this, I can whatever. I don't think that everyone thrives in that scenario, so I think that there is a natural gift there, but I think that there is probably some also learned and calculated responses. I think what's really interesting about that is going back to an earlier podcast, luck or providence or whatever. He has some really huge strokes of luck, right? I'm not here to paint Hines as a empirically good man or a bad man or whatever. He was a slave owner, but he got pretty lucky to get a guy who could. It wasn't altruism that he directed towards Holt, but to have an owner that might be open-minded enough to say, like, I struggle for the semantics here. Because
there certainly could have been other alternatives for an owner to the way they treated their people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to say, like, that he was doing something empirically good by being less bad to Holt than another owner. That's the language struggle that I'm having there. But, like, he was fortunate to have that. He was fortunate to, when he ran away to join him, like, to have found his master. Like, the story of him getting off, like, stowing away on a boat and then getting off. Where were they? In Memphis?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where they were mustering? I just remember the story of him, like, and then he showed up. And it's like, if I showed up in a big city, like, the odds of finding one person in that huge city, maybe there was more to that story that I missed, but there were, like, these moments of serendipity that followed him around. I think it gets back at the idea of this, like, you can't remove any one leg of this table. Like, he's an uncommonly gifted guy. Has uncommon experiences. He, the fact that he's black, and that changes that paradigm. Like, I don't know.
You're making some really astute points, and I think what you said was well said, man. Is that none of this stuff is mutually exclusive. Like, I guess I feel a certain responsibility to push back against kind of a Disneyfication of his life.
Right.
But I think everything that folks are picking up about this guy is there, which is why he's so fascinating, because he's extraordinary. You're right. He lived through extraordinary times, extraordinary, what do you call it? Luck or providence or whatever. I think he's super savvy. I think that, he made the most of kind of extraordinary situations he found himself in. It really is. The more I think about it, the more I look into it, the more I work, on research about this guy. I don't think this is an overstatement. I really feel like it's one of the greatest American stories I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm. He is an absolute shining example of perseverance, if there ever was one. And taking it, I don't even know if you could accuse him of taking advantage of anything because of where he lived and when he lived. But what he built out of that, I mean, we're talking about him today. How long has that been? 160 years ago? How many people were in the Civil War? I mean, there was like up to 10,000, I think, that black people, African Americans, that served on the Confederate side. And we're talking about this one guy. Mm-hmm. And this guy did a lot of good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and was in some really unique places. Perseverance is what I took from it. I can't wait for the next.
What was your favorite
parts.
part? What was your favorite Holt story in this one? Yeah, we can go around. Favorite Holt story. You don't have to retell it necessarily, but was there one that stood out to you?
Yeah, shooting that cat. If the alleged shooting of Captain King. I mean, that's being in law enforcement and having somebody.
Now, wait a minute, you're the one
That's
who's always
what
not
that's what I was going to say.
Holt
Hold on
Collier
now.
was an outlaw.
Hold on now. Here's the thing.
Right,
But
Jonathan?
As long as it's not a turkey, Brent don't care.
I see.
having your fellas with you, and you get in a tight spot, and somebody's got your back. There's a lot to be said for that.
Mm.
I mean, you multiply that by times 10 for the situation he was in.
Yeah.
But
well, and I haven't.
And
we
it was
haven't
just a
told
carpetbagger.
the third time that he, like, on podcast 2, we're going to talk about the other guy he straight up killed. I told about the guy he shot and wounded, and told about Captain King, and we just ran out of time. So beginning of podcast 3 is the dude that he straight up killed, and you'll see that maybe it was his fault, maybe it wasn't. I'm going to just leave it there.
Oh.
So
self-defense.
So you like the idea that Holt was kind of, I mean, we presume there was something of loyalty.
There's loyalty.
To his
There's a lot
buddy.
to be said for loyalty, regardless where it's at.
Favorite story, Jonathan? In this podcast, you got to keep it to this one.
I love the idea of him being this little kid, in just the thick palmetto swamps, and he goes out there with some gun, that I imagine is as tall as he is, and coming back with a bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The long gun.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I'm sure they didn't give him, the best gun of the time, right? Yeah. So he's got some rough weapon, and he just goes out there and he makes it happen. And also that's kind of the beginning of the spark of this extraordinary life, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I agree. You can see those formative experiences. Gosh, I like so many of them. I like that he wore his hat the same way his whole life.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, but that was like
the 9th Texas Cavalry.
No.
What's that
Still
about?
not.
Cavalry.
Oh, I even tried to get it right.
Cavalry. Cavalry is
The
like a
world's
biblical
coming
term.
down hard on me for mispronouncing words recently.
Yeah.
Real hard.
The hat the whole life reminds me of, back to the last podcast, Leon Boyd wearing the Letterman jacket his whole life.
Yeah.
I love
yeah.
that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
Holt wore a Confederate hat with the bill flipped up.
How he wore the hat, and that there's all those pictures of him as an old man with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just really
You
makes.
like that, huh?
I did when I heard it. I was like that. I love that. Not just that he had this thing from his youth that was like, this is where I fit.
He
These
took
are the
a lot
people.
of identity from that, it seems like.
Yeah.
The Cav. I can't even say it.
It's all good.
Moving on.
You did a great job.
Favorite part.
Okay, this is
Favorite
going to
single
seem
story.
a little bit out of left field, but I'm going to try to explain it. The story of him, like the kids wanting to hear stories from him, and
Yes.
him
Yeah,
being like,
I love it.
go get me an orange knee-high and a plug of tobacco. First of all, I don't partake in either of those, but I want to start now.
Are those on the same moral plane with you?
No, I
Tobacco
just don't.
and,
Orange knee high.
Honestly,
orange knee-high?
Hot take. I think that soda might be worse for you than tobacco. I'm saying it.
Ooh.
I'm saying it. Surgeon General, come fight me. But check this out. I love it because I think this gets back to something that is maybe a little bit of what you're talking about, but this, and I'm pointing at Gary. This idea of his indwelling, like innate understanding of his value. Like identity is one of the biggest struggles for people, and if you know your identity and your value, it is going to determine a lot of how your life goes. And for him to be like an old man and be like, I got something you want, you got something I want, go get your pennies together, get me an orange soda and a plug of tobacco, and I will give you everything you want. And I don't know, I just love that. It's not it is not what we would necessarily expect or
Uncle
whatever,
Holt,
but
they
yeah,
called him.
Yeah,
I
love
don't know.
it.
It's just like such an endearing, like, yeah, that squares. I'm in.
That story, of all the stories that Minor Ferris Buchanan told, it felt like he was most proud of that one because that wasn't written in an article, that wasn't written down somewhere in some place on the internet. Like he searched that one out when he met this guy that had moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Which was interesting of itself too. This guy had moved to Los Angeles, lived his whole life, was an old man out there, and was coming back to Greenville. And that's where Minor met the guy. And it's kind of, Holt seems so far back there. Like when you think of someone
When you
being
say Civil
born
War,
before
160
the
years.
Civil War. And to think that Minor Ferris Buchanan, this guy, I don't know, Minor's probably in his 60s, talked to a guy that knew Holt Collier, that
Yeah.
sat on his porch in Greenville in the 1930s. And Holt was cracking knee-high sodas. I mean, I guess they had glass bottles back then. Wouldn't have been an aluminum bottle, right?
Correct.
It's just like, wow, this really wasn't that long ago. And then when you realize that, you can say, wow, it wasn't that long ago that, heck, all this wild stuff was happening in this country. But that's a great story. That was a favorite story of mine too.
Do we go further in depth to the Teddy Roosevelt teddy bear story in future episodes?
You're the assistant producer of this podcast. Shouldn't you know that? Of course we do.
Okay. I'll hold my next question then.
No, we go into a lot of detail in it.
Okay.
I didn't want to, like, if storytelling were up to me and just like everyone, like if y'all were all in my living room and I was telling you the Holt Collier story, I wouldn't have told the punchline at the very beginning. But the bad thing about podcasts and people listening that don't have to listen to you, that's the reason I like Misty so much.
Yeah.
Is she has to listen to me.
Because you talk over the top of
She
it.
has to act like she's listening to you.
Like I'm like, Misty, look at me in the eye. I'm going to tell you a story. And I would drop the punchline at the very end. I would tell all this stuff about Holt Collier, and then I'd go, and then he got it Teddy Roosevelt. But the way you have to do it because Steve Ranella gave me some great advice early in Bear Grease, is he said, don't bury the hook too deep. He really did.
Yep.
Don't bury the hook too deep.
Good
so
advice.
you kind of have to tell people what you're going to tell them early. So later we will talk more about the teddy bear. Dad, favorite Holt Collier story from
Before
this
I
episode?
do the favorite story, I did not like the knee-high chewing tobacco story because I have so much respect for this guy. I'm thinking he was trying to teach these kids a lesson or
He
something.
just wanted to chew tobacco.
He had plenty of money. Why didn't he have chewing tobacco?
Well, you're going to learn a lot about Holt Collier
Okay.
in the next couple of episodes.
I was disappointed in that.
Well, he
Be honest
wasn't
with
a
you.
saint. Let me just
Okay.
put it that way.
Okay. All right. Well, you know,
Are you
Am I
saying
right,
that?
you can
Jonathan?
tell from what I said, you know, my appreciation has a lot of depth to it. And the depth is he pulled all the, and it might be contrary to what Jonathan thinks, which I respect his view more than mine, but those people loved him. I mean, I'm telling you, the Hines loved this kid. I mean, they went to a shootout with him. I mean, they got out and said, "Hey, you won't let the kid ride with this buggy? Let's duke it out." Isn't that true?
That's right.
I mean, he said,
that's
"Let's."
the story we're told.
I think so much of this kid. Come on, he's riding. I'm gonna whoop your fanny. Then, when he shoots that guy, I mean, he was protecting Hines, wasn't he?
Right. That's right.
So, I mean, this love was like father-son almost. I mean, he loved this kid. And this kid loved everybody. He loved his cavalry people. The cavalry people loved him. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy was so deep and complicated, and it all came natural. I mean, this guy, once you say he's a criminal, it's kind of shooting a hole in my stuff. But I think, you know, he was smart enough to plot some of this stuff out. But his 6 buddies didn't come up there.
Hey, oh, yeah. No, keep going.
They
I
didn't
just
come
wanna-
up there for any other reason than they love this guy.
And see, and I'll speak for Jonathan and I have talked a lot. That's why this story is so complex and interesting, because basically, and we don't even have to get into this, but I hear what you're saying. But what Jonathan, I think, so skillfully did, and there's no solution. It's not like he's
We
right
can't
and you're
know,
wrong. It's
yeah.
Jonathan introduced the word to me, binary. It's not black or white. But like, how you know? It really, I don't even necessarily. We kind of got to close it down to some degree, but you can say he loved him, but he also enslaved the guy. You know,
That was
so-
normal.
And,
That
and
was
that's
normal.
the,
Hey,
that's
I'm
the
gonna
part.
disagree with Jonathan. This deal is black and white to me. You got a stringly gifted kid that loves people and wants to help people, and people go, "Look at this kid, man! I love him, and I'm going to help him." And so, I mean, wherever he went, people were on his side. He was on their side, and I mean, he was on the wrong side of the war. And you know why? Because he loved those people around him. He didn't go, "Well, I'm gonna evaluate this now. I'm thinking I need to be on the Union side." He didn't do that.
Right.
He goes, "Man,
He
I
was
love
loyal
you.
to the people.
I love you. You've taken care of me. I'm gonna take care of you. Let's go to battle. Give me my M16. We're going."
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
to me, it's that simple.
yeah.
Gifted, loving guy. I love the guy.
I hear you.
Stop it. Stop it. Don't give Jonathan a chance to come back.
Clay, what was your favorite story?
Favorite story. You can't have a favorite story.
What?
This is a ridiculous question.
It is a ridiculous
They
question.
were all great stories.
Okay.
No, I like the knee-high orange. I like. It's really hard for me because I know his whole life, but inside of this one, him getting in these gunfights was wild. The 9th Texas Cavalry. If y'all would have done what I'm doing, I would have been like, nope, just pick one.
Yep.
I guess it was the 9th Texas Cavalry.
There it is.
The sugar
That's really
canes.
hard to say.
You're doing great.
Them being at the courthouse in Vicksburg.
Man, that
Just-
story, it feels like it has to be apocryphal, but it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like 7
Selling
horses,
mule,
6 guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like
And they're-
that's the end of a movie, man.
Yeah, they were.
And that's just the beginning of this
oh
movie.
my goodness, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it
Wild.
was it to me this story, what's intriguing about it and why you just couldn't you didn't want to miss anything is it is complex. He is loyal. People are loyal to him. There's all sorts of subtext around that and why are they loyal and what's driving that and Is he actually free to be disloyal? I mean, there's all sorts of questions around it. But at the end of the day, you've got the Texas Ninth Cavalry showing up and a slave master, and all those things we have appropriately negative thoughts of these, but these things are still happening to this man, and it does sound like it's a made-for movie story. I mean, it just sounds, it's almost unbelievable.
Everything was so complex, and you can't understand it. I mean, this was an hour-long podcast, and I mean, most people, that's all they would know about this story. It was an hour in our commentary on it. But like, there was so many complexities. Even when so many complexities. But no, I think what Jonathan did good and what he said here today and what I wanted to do is not to, like, basically this idea that this wasn't a Disney story and this guy was living in the midst of a terrible
murder.
time. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy sometimes to hear the story and just be like, oh, this guy had a great life. And, and when you see some of the other aspects of Holt's life, and I mean, we're going to tell them they're in the book.
I think it's going to be tough on Gary.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not, he wasn't a criminal, but I mean,
I'll never believe anything other than what I've said here today.
Brent, closing thoughts, and then we got to give Jonathan the closing thought.
Gary's loyal to Gary. I'm ready to get into the hunting part.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really intriguing because, I mean, he started when he was 10. He's 20 at the end of this podcast. He ought to be ripping and rolling in the next one. I'm looking.
Yeah, it's cool. Jonathan, thanks for coming up, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Give them the social details real quick. How do they find you?
Oh, just Black Duck Revival. You can Google it. You can Instagram it.
blackduckrevival.com.
Yep. That's the
website. You got any duck hunts, goose hunts this winter you're trying to get rid of?
Yeah, I mean, I've got like 3 or 4 spots on a hunt at the end of the year for speckled-bellied geese.
December?
Yeah, so I think it's like December 30th to January 1st. Yep, that's what's left.
That's the prettiest one, I think.
Those speckled-bellied geese, they're gorgeous. They taste the best.
And the flight, I mean, it's just so pretty to watch.
Yeah, they're super communicative too, right? So like for anybody who's into bird hunting, that sounds more like a turkey. But, I mean, like if what you like about turkey hunting is that talking to a bird, communicating with the bird, speckled-bellied geese are great for that because they talk back and forth to you all the way in. Yep. I'd say like if closing thought. 1, Gary, I still love you. But and I guess part of me is worried that I'll be labeled a contrarian of some sort. But at this point in my life, I might have already. I think I'm probably wearing that.
Ship sailed.
Yeah, I'm wearing that badge fairly proudly. But I would just reassert my thought that what makes the story so fascinating to me is that I think that there are aspects of what everybody in here is relating that are true, right? And that
we got a squirrel tree down here.
There you go.
Y'all watch this. Des, hush! Sorry, Jonathan. Right at the climax moment.
I took the steam out of it, buddy.
I did. And I heard that dog barking, and I thought, there's no way Clay's going to let Jonathan finish his sentence. He cannot.
I wouldn't even hear what he said. Start over, Jonathan. So sorry.
There are elements to what everybody's saying.
Yeah,
but
there's truth in all of this stuff, right? I think what we owe to the legacy of Holt Collier is to allow him to be as multifaceted and nuanced as I think he was, allow his life and his story to exhibit those characteristics, and to continue to talk about him, and to talk about him and discuss him and think about him and look to his example with the nuance that I think he lived his life with. And I mean, there's stuff for everybody to take something out of this man's story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be my closing thought. This is not a again, this is not a binary story, right? This is not a binary discussion. This is a super complicated thing, and for me personally, those are the kind of people and those are the kind of stories that I feel drawn to.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Great conversation, guys. Send your anything you are looking to sell that has to do with the outdoor world to beargrease@themeateater.com.
Include your social tag.
Yeah.
Include your social handle.
Bear
And,
Grease Bargain Bonanza. Bargain Barn.
Yeah, Bargain Barn Bonanza. Excellent.
I love
Thanks,
Bonanza.
guys. Thanks for everybody that drove up here and everybody.
But
Misty and
yeah,
I,
we're just like sitting pretty
Y'all just
over
live
here.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This show is sponsored in part by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we've already done right. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you actually want to eat breakfast. In the last year, I've been more diligent about going to the gym on a regimented schedule, and it's made a lot of difference in my life. Therapy helps you find your strengths so that you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/grease today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/grease.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.